We gotta look around, the greeting's gonna take up 15 seconds. You're not gonna get that. It's still running all the time. It don't matter which you put it on.
Everybody turned out to drunk. They will come to college, but they can't come drunk.
We want to hear the preacher good.
That's why I'm asking.
It's got like a built-in word bleeping kind of software. Oh, man. Let's see if we're live. Give a minute for anybody wants to join.
So we didn't talk about this. You want to go first or second?
No, I figure.
Okay.
Got a new shirt from Father's Day.
Can I call the teachers?
Yeah, kind of.
Yep.
Okay.
World's okayest dad. He's okay. All right, why did this thing work?
Smells like a hamburger.
Chili dog. Mhm. Raising them right. Okay. Well, tonight should be interesting. James and I, as y'all are all aware, y'all sent us out to California to partake in the Southern Baptist Convention annual meeting to represent Liberty Hill, right? We as a church had decided it's one thing to just sit around and talk about the things that are going on. How about we send some representatives to the meeting and participate? And I figure since you footed the bill to send us out there, we might as well at least tell you what happened. So, yes, sir. Your point is not well received. Yeah. So, get into it. Is your mind not right? All right. Yeah. So that's what we're gonna do. In here in a second, I'll pray. And then we'll just, I want to give just a summary, hit the high points of what happened, and then we'll get into some of this more specific details of points of business and things that went on. So, Father God, we thank you. Lord, we are just, we're honored that we are able to take part in such a wonderful event. God, that you have given us this opportunity, that your people in this nation had organized such a organization to send out missionaries to see your word go forward, the gospel preached. God, that we can come together with thousands of other brothers and sisters in Christ to pull our resources to see your work done. God, I pray that as we recount the events of the meeting, that you let our hearts and our minds be set on you. God, it is so easy to let worldly attitudes and concerns carry us away. Lord, let us have an attitude that honors and glorifies the grace that we have been given and have been commanded to extend to others. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so it's not all bad. You're making it sound like it was just like some horrible train wreck, you know? There was some, how should we say, lively debate that went on a few times. So summary, I guess, of the kind of main things that happened. First off, one of the big deals that happens at the annual meeting is the election of the president for the next year's convention. As we've talked about before, technically the convention, the Southern Baptist Convention, really only exists for 2 days out of the year. So people will say, we're not actually a denomination. We're a fellowship of churches. We're an association. Because the Southern Baptist Convention is the messengers that come together. They say, here's what we believe, here's what we're doing, here's, what's going on. And then the officers and committees that are elected and assigned, they're the ones that actually carry out the day-to-day business of, Southern Baptist churches on church's behalf. And so election of the president, there was a fourth one that was nominated, wasn't there? Because there was Tom Askell, Robin Hadaway, there was Bart Barber. Wasn't there a fourth that I wouldn't?
I think there was a fourth added.
Yeah, poor guy, I can't remember his name. Of the three, Robin Hadaway was, background in missions, had served for years on the, was it the International Mission Board, I think, and just heart for the gospel. So, good guy. But Tom Askell, the Conservative Baptist Network and Founders Ministry, he's a pastor. He is the more conservative of the bunch. I wouldn't put any of them as really call him liberal. Bart Barber, who actually ended up winning, is a pastor in Texas, I think somewhere down south. Seems a good guy. I don't think he quite has the Farmersville?
No, that was the other.
No. I don't think he quite has the fire in his belly for the issues that are facing the Southern Baptist Convention, but he seems a decent, godly man. We'll see how that goes. So Bart Barber won as president. One of the big things that happened was the report on the Sexual Abuse Task Force had some recommendations for the Southern Baptist Convention. There was some rather lively debate that went on, and then to no one's surprise, the recommendations passed rather overwhelmingly, wasn't even close. And those recommendations were to form a new task force that examines how to go about implementing these changes into Southern Baptist Convention entities, seminaries, different organizations, and help out churches and stuff to prevent sexual abuse going on. And then to create a database of pastors, ministers, church staff that have been convicted, confessed, or credibly accused, so that churches can check that. Because a lot of times these predators would, abuse at one church and then go over to another church and just bounce church to church. And so, Saddleback Church, last year, a motion had been made that Saddleback Church, Rick Warren's church, be removed, disfellowshipped from the Southern Baptist Convention because they had rather publicly and celebratorily ordained two women pastors. And the Southern Baptist Convention is decidedly complementarian. Only men are pastors. And so motion was made last year to disfellowship Saddleback Church. That goes to a committee. The committee reviews it. They're supposed to bring it back, their recommendation, to the convention. The convention votes. They didn't do that. They said, well, there's some clarification needed. And there was some lively debate about that. We'll get into that, I'm sure, in a little bit. And ultimately, the question or recommendation was kind of withdrawn back to the committee for them to further review, and then next year they'll make a recommendation. And so that's kind of how that went. And then there were several instances of lively debate over several abortion issues, resolutions that weren't brought out for debate. There were the seminary presidents, right? Because they get up and give their report, because the seminaries belong to the convention. So they get up to the convention and say, here's how our seminary's doing, and give the report. And then there's a question time, and every single one of them got hit with questions about abortion and their seminaries, their universities' stance on the abortion issue and how they have their faculty, the issue is taught in that university or in that seminary. And so, and then even at one point, there was a motion made to abolish the Ethics and Religious Liberty Council, the ERLC, which is kind of the activist political kind of arm of the SBC. But a lot of people aren't happy with the things it's been doing over the last few years. and especially on the abortion issue. And so a motion was made to abolish it, failed. But there was a rather significant number of messengers who approved getting rid of the ERLC. And so as I'm figuring, that was kind of the big things, kind of 30,000 foot. Anything out that you want to add into the summary before we get into details?
Something like, I guess it's details.
Okay.
30,000 view, I think that's, I didn't have time to go home and grab my book.
Yeah. If anyone wants to, I actually have, this is the 2022 Book of Reports. So like all the reports that all the other entities, the North American Mission Board, the International Mission Board, all the seminaries, all the different committees, executive committee, committee on nominations, committee on committees. How Baptist is that? We have a committee on committees. All of those things, their reports, budget, financial stuff, it's all in here. And so if you ever want to look at all those details, here they are, they're available. Each day, this is a messenger guide that just kind of broke down what's going on, all that kind of stuff. It has some information in here that might be interesting, but I don't know how relevant it would be now that it's over. Somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000. I think at one point there were like 8,000 because it fluctuated.
They had about 10,000 people there, but the people voting registered were 6,200. The thing is, because they kept calling out the number with people.
Right.
And he's like, of the 6,120, 6,198 are now. So everybody.
Well, because you'd have more people that came, and they registered. So now the number of messengers in attendance, but it was somewhere around 7,000. It kind of fluctuated a little bit. I heard, and this is one thing, because especially some of the things we'll get into here in a minute, you think, wow, that just sounds really bad for the Southern Baptist Convention. But there's also, you got to realize that I read a stat somewhere that there were only like 3,500 churches represented out of 47,000 churches in the SBC. It's expensive to travel. It's even more expensive right now. And typically the folks who attend the meeting are the ones who are closer. And this one was held in California. A little more, the ideological leanings of those churches, probably a little more in things that we would think, oh, no, don't need to be doing that. And so while there's some things that look grim on a few issues, I don't know how actually representative we could think that is of the SBC. And so. I'm sure there was. I've read somewhere there were protesters outside. I never saw them. Like as far as inside, no, I didn't see anything inside.
There's a lot of people like they would, if someone's in the microphone speaking,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it could be. I mean, because you'd see photographers and videographers run all over the place to the whole thing. So, yeah, I don't think there was any news media, at least inside. And I didn't see, like a gaggle of reporters outside waiting to, no. Yeah. So, but anyway, this just, each day we had bulletins that these listed the order of events, different resolutions that were to be made, summaries of reports, just some stuff there. I mean, you can always come look at these. This one is a frequently asked questions little pamphlet they gave us for the Sexual Abuse Task Force. And so, again, this stuff's available if you'd like to look at that, if it'd be helpful. So, okay, get up here. Quit making me do this alone.
I know you're going to get into it, Mark. task force?
Mhm.
Is that a paid message? Is that like an outside party?
No. This would be made up of members of the SBC, probably pastors or some other
No,
such.
they did set aside $4 million for the task force and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
Um,
well, the way they were explaining it, the way they were saying, like, we meet our budget, not taking any money away from our budgeted items. But this is undesignated funds that are going to go toward this task force.
yeah. Um,
Louisiana,
Nolans.
Louisiana.
Yep.
So I'd like to start this. Mark asked a question toward the end whenever we were finished. We were packing up in our hotel. He asked a pretty good question. He said, did we waste the church's money by coming here? You know, with the way the voting went, the way the thing, like he said.
It's supposed to be secret.
No, but I'm just saying it's a legitimate question. It's a legitimate question about being and going and representing and stuff. Now, I'm going to start off by saying I do not like the way they run their business. I'm going to start off glum and terrible. I don't think it was a waste of our money to go, especially in a moment whenever it's held in a leaning area and it's good for conservatives to head over there and at least have a voice. So I think that was a great time. Plus the eye-opening, everything that we learned of how they do their business and how we kind of disagree with it, and all the stuff that we've kind of gleaned with the side action, if you want to call it. It wasn't really the main reports. It wasn't really the main numbers that they were telling us. It was more the way they conducted their meeting is what I really had a lot of problems with.
Well, and I will say, because, you know, it changes every year because whoever the president is, he presides over the meeting, and some are better than others. And what's that? This is the first national.
First national. I haven't been to any of them, and he's been to
I've been to a few association meetings. I've been to a couple of state meetings.
So this is my first time,
So
and I'm like, I don't like it.
also, like for instance, I was reviewing some things earlier today, watching some parts of it, and literally back to back, the president contradicted himself on what was allowed. A motion was made, or it wasn't a motion. I forget exactly what it was, but somebody put forth something. It was voted. Everybody said no, and then the next person, same thing, but then that person got to talk. Or someone was like, "Point of order, does she get to argue and for her, motion?"
Yeah.
He said no, and then turned around the next person. They got to speak to their motion. It's like, wait a minute. There was some of that, which, I don't want to put that on the entire, just so it could have just been this president wasn't very good at presiding over a 7,000 people meeting. That can change from year to year, but.
And that is, I think there's a committee that creates this schedule and does all that. So the president, I think, appoints those committees, or they have like tenure of 2 or 3 years, and some people coming off committees, they're coming on committees, and it's a mixture of stuff. But like I said, as far as the way that it was running, my goodness, I had quite a few issues with the way they ran it. So when it boils down to it, what's presented to us, what are our questions? What do we need to make decisions on? Much less, like I said, the president or whatever's going on. That's what I'd like to kind of boil it down to, the meat and taters of the point of us going, what we learned and what decisions, our takeaways of what we got to get doing. Like I said, I didn't bring my stuff with me, but I took some notes on my phone. So do we want to?
Well, there's a few kind of key, I guess, big things, and some of them I mentioned. And you got to be careful because we can get on one thing and then spend the next 45 minutes talking about one thing.
Right, and I don't want to get in that either. That's why I want to make sure that we have a structure of what we.
So I kind of have here some points I jotted down, things you might want to mention.
Sorry.
I was going to say the number one biggest thing is the sex abuse issue. Because the report that came out, and then what are we doing about it? The recommendations they made, right? Last week we talked about it and how some of the recommendations they were putting out there were like, whoa, hold on, we shouldn't be doing that. And but they still seem to be going forward.
They went through the. Now, when it came to that, that was a lot of our questions. We're an autonomous church. They cannot tell us what to do, right? So where is their authority? Where is their power? They're taking, millions of dollars to set up this stuff. And so my point is, what are you doing? And it feels like the main thing they're going to do some investigations. They're going to do some check. They're going to set up a database. A lot of that stuff sounds okay. I like that, but if you do not agree with their investigation, they will recommend that you get kicked out of the SBC. So that's their authority. That's their power. That's their stick they're going to hit us over with. If something happens and someone makes a claim and we've already said, no, that was a complete farce. Like we know what's going on. People have been involved. We've settled it. We know we brought in professionals or whatever we've done. They still want to come in and we're like, no, thank you. We don't need y'all guys here in our business. They can disband us from the SBC because we didn't play along with their investigation. However that works out, I think that's about the strongest arm that they have is they'll just kick us out of the SBC if we don't agree with their investigation. And I'm not against it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we would like to have our own choice to agree or disagree with whatever actions they take. If they want to give us training, I'm all about them offering us some training. If they want to give us a resource to go and look and protect our victims, absolutely. I'm all about doing that. A database, the questions about liability and if you falsely accuse somebody and they can sue the SBC and all those things the doors are open for those things. So those are a lot of concerns with the task force. But when it comes to the body, when it comes to us, they can recommend that we be removed from the SBC. That's about the biggest threat, if you want to say. They can't come to us financially. They can't, okay, pastor, you're out of here. We are autonomous. They cannot. They can only suggest. Right. They can only say, hey, we recommend that y'all guys take certain actions or take certain trainings or do whatever. We do not have to follow the recommendations. We're an autonomous body. The only thing is they might kick us out if we don't follow their list of to-dos.
And one concern on that is not so much as like, oh, they could punish us. I'm concerned that just overall, it's kind of flipping the relationship between the churches and the SBC. Because as we talked about before, right, as it's been said, the headquarters of the Southern Baptist Convention is the local church because they work for us. They have to do what we say according to what the messengers. Well, it seems here now the power that we're giving them is now they're going to be in position to tell us what to do on some things. Wait a minute, that's not how that's supposed to work. That's not how.
Right, and that was one of my questions. Is like if they're going to try to tell us what to do, first off, I think they can make suggestions and they can say, hey, we think y'all guys need more training or whatever. But my main question on that, if they're flipping the script on us, what are they going to do? They can go to the committee. The committee can vote and say, y'all guys are not in fellowship with us. Y'all guys need to get out of the SBC. And they can just remove us from the SBC. That's their flipping the authority. That's their strong arm, if you want to call it.
And kind of the main thing, that really concerned, because Liberty Hill Baptist Church is going to be Liberty Hill Baptist Church no matter what happens with a national organization. But the Southern Baptist Convention is the largest missionary sending organization in the world. Southern Baptist seminaries train like 80% of pastors in North America. Even the non-Baptist ones a lot of them go to Southern Baptist seminaries. So my issue with this isn't what is this going to do, because it's not going to do anything to us. Right? Well, we'll still be us. We'll just, all right, whatever. It's changing what the SBC is. And I think it's opening the door to, I don't know, outside forces or corruption to be able to tear it apart. Because by taking on an internal responsibility for handling sexual abuse, the Southern Baptist Convention is taking on responsibility. You already have lawsuits putting out ads for class action suits. Hey, have you been, abused by someone in a Southern Baptist church? Call the law office of, blah, blah, blah. And by taking on the responsibility of, okay, well, we'll take reports and we'll vet reports and we'll have these structures in order to, it's like, okay, well, now are we just taking a liability? Aren't we just gonna say, hey, yeah, come sue us? In which case, if people come suing, they're suing because criminal charges couldn't or wouldn't get pressed. Well, how do you find relief in a lawsuit? Money, which means that's going to be millions of dollars being paid out from the cooperative program that would be going to missionaries
Now,
that now is not.
they do say that the lawyers, which is another point of contention for me, the lawyers say, no, this does not make y'all liable. This will not make you liable. But knowing lawyers, they're going to try to make us liable. I can just see that.
So the way it's set up now is the Southern Baptist Convention liable?
The lawyers say that we're not going to be, but if we have a database and it's wrong,
Right.
and
Right,
Huh?
right, because right now they're not liable.
today we're not liable.
Because, if something.
That's the concern.
If something were to happen in, some church, which, the report found, hundreds over the last 20 years where reportedly things have happened. But the convention itself has no authority over those churches. And so there's no liability. You can't, because it's a completely separate thing. It has no way to impose anything on the local church. Well, but now this is saying, okay, we have this list, we have this, these things in place to where we're now taking on the responsibility of rooting out and preventing this from going on in our churches. So, that seems to me just implicitly it's taking on the responsibility and thus the liability if something were to happen.
Especially for discovery.
Yep. Yep.
That's the other thing is all of this will be run by an outside source that's not a Christian source.
Right, because in every point on the way, it says, because in order for someone to go on the list of predatory, ministers, they either have to confess, if there's been a confession, if there has been a conviction or a civil judgment, or if they've been found credibly accused according to an independent investigation, which uses a lower bar, evidentiary bar than the criminal case would. But in order to go to an outside firm to get that, how many outside firms qualified to do those kind of investigations do you think there are that running around that are Baptist? Just to get the report that we got, the firm that we did, which is an international investigative firm that does these sorts of things, they're totally secular. The people, was it Guidepost, who did the sex abuse report investigation, just a week or so ago, put out a support for LGBT Pride Month. Okay, so is this who now we have to have outside authorities determining our internal? I'm not liking that.
Yeah, so I was same thing. I was wanting to vote this down. I don't think we need to do that. I don't mind some of the benefits that they're talking about. I think there's better ways to go about it than to turn the leash over to an outside source. But the way they kept pressing it, they kept pushing it, and it passed. Like I said, I was like, I don't like that. I really don't like it. But
there is some hope, I would think, because what did pass was that there would be a task force that would actually, they're going to be their job to examine and analyze how to implement recommendations. It is, please Lord, entirely possible. They look and they go, we can't implement a lot of these. Personally, just real quick, I think, and I think we touched on this last week when we talked about this issue specifically, that the role of the Southern Baptist Convention needs to be when someone contacts the Southern Baptist Convention with a report of abuse in a local church, they get referred. They don't take the report and deal with it internally in the SBC. They refer them to local organizations and resources that are available to help. The Southern Baptist Convention, right? But people sitting in an office in Nashville, Tennessee, where SBC, offices are, have no business dealing with any of this. Offer training to churches, to be able to spot and how to deal with stuff if it happens, that sort of stuff. Absolutely. We give money to them, and that's one of the things Lifeway, does, the publication arm in producing these kind of materials. Make all that sorts of stuff available to churches. Here's some training stuff, here's some seminars, here's some, whatever. But to take on the responsibility of the SBC itself handling things just seems way out of line for me.
I agree. And we have other systems like this. So at other churches I've been a part of, if someone comes in asking for money, we say, oh, we give our money to a cooperative program in Waco. Here's their number. And y'all guys we give them all of our money that we give. So if you need money, if you need help, go to them. We support them. They're going to support you. And they're the ones, they get their driver's license. They're getting into a system. You can't get help more than once every 3 months. We know that you're part of other, they have that. That's an entity created for that. So we have other things that look like this to protect in other avenues. So I think this task force, like he's saying, hopefully realizes that and goes different directions other than handing over all of this and making us liable to lawsuits and stuff. But like I said, we'll see how that turns out. There's a few things that we kind of need to watch and see how they turn out. So
yeah, that's about the gist of the sex abuse
that one, which
thing. Yes.
They have had this before, so they have taken out law
What do you,
no. If there is, one of the first things they're talking about is saying, if there's a problem, call the cops, do it. The problem is whenever that guy gets away because there's no evidence and he bounces to your neighbor church. This is supposed to have some sort of way to investigate, say, well, this guy's been to like 5 different churches. He's been accused at 5 different churches. He's never been busted. Is there credibly accused in this moment? Are you going to find him conviction? That's what the database is for. So if we want to hire somebody, hey, who's on that database? Because Mark is applying to work for us and his name pops up on their database. The question is it proper? Has it been vetted? Was it just somebody lying to get him on the database? Or is it truly like Mark is a predator and his name should be on that database? And that's all, like I said, that's all secular. Any kind of investigation, I feel like, is going to be handed over to the secular. But no, the first thing that they do, they are not removing law enforcement from those situations. So that should be, in my mind, our first move too. If we see, we get trained from this situation, we see something, we have a lot of questions. Hey, let's go ahead and call the cops and have them, CPS, come and investigate. That's our first move to protect our church, protect our people.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Texas, yeah.
Yes, yeah, I'm just saying. So that is going to be the first move.
Well, and
it's the database.
So,
it's not.
yeah.
It's not. They're going to go after somebody. They're just going to put you on a list. A sex offender list or something. So you just don't hire that guy. But if it comes out to be false and slander and stuff, and how do you get off the list? And can he sue you for slander? Can he's like, see, that person was lying and it came out and they confessed that they were lying, but you put me on the list and it cost me my job and I couldn't get jobs and I'm homeless. I want money. Does that actually make us liable?
right.
And that's the hard part.
And that's the thing. Like, no, it
part.
wouldn't be without evidence. It's, the there's a standard, it's a legal standard, the same legal standard used in other situations, and it's just a lower bar, and it'll be done by a qualified firm.
Yeah. So,
Well, sometimes those are false too, and so.
yeah. So I know of a case, the guy went to jail, went to prison for a couple of years, and then they said, oh, wait, we were kidding. He didn't do that. So they released him out of prison. He already lost his job, lost his family, lost everything based off of a lie. But he went to prison. And it's like, oh my goodness. Huh? Well, I'm just saying, you want to protect victims. And we all agree on that. We want to, but we also want to, all of a sudden this guy becomes a victim because he was falsely accused. Now the victim is the pastor, right? And we want to protect the victims of child abuse. We also want to protect the victims of the falsely accused. We'll see how this works out. Like I said, that all is going to be decided by a secular entity, I feel like. A lot of red flags on that one. But anyway, I think any other questions? We kind of covered most of that.
Okay. Kind of the next big thing that was like one of the big moments was the issue of Saddleback Church and Rick Warren. Because, I mean, most of you probably know Rick Warren, maybe read some of his books. He is just a very ubiquitous, evangelical public figure. However, last year, literally like 2 weeks, I think it was, before the convention, they very publicly, with much fanfare and celebration, ordained 2 women pastors. And so it came up at last year's convention saying, hey, hold on, time out. Baptist Faith and Message, Baptist doctrine says that only men can be pastors. And, much love to Rick and the work he's done, but if that's where your church is going, well, you're not Southern Baptist. And so a motion was made to have them disfellowshipped. That went to the proper committee. However, I'm trying to remember exactly how they phrased it.
They said they wanted to redefine or ask for a clarity on what is the definition of lead pastor.
Well, because it's like, okay, biblically, there is the office of pastor. However, and I'm sure we've all seen this, where you have all kinds of people serving in different positions in a church that are given the title of pastor, but technically they're not really fulfilling the biblical office of pastor. And so we need some clarification on what really it means to say the woman can't be a pastor. And there was rather lively debate over that issue, saying, which I fall in that camp of like, we don't need someone to tell us what pastor means. We know what pastor is. If that position that you're calling pastor isn't really a pastor, change your title.
Call him minister. Call him anything else.
Call him minister. Call him director. Call him teacher. Call him whatever. But just to make sure things are clear, pastors are called pastors. Women don't serve that position in the Southern Baptist. And
Saddleback also, again, they kind of doubled down. About a week before this year's convention, they did it again. He announced this kind of same situation. So not only did they do it last year, they did it this year again, right before the convention. And so one of the other clarifications they were asking about, and the committee was coming back, if you look at what they decide, they cross in hairs by saying closely aligned with the Baptist Faith and Message. So you don't have to agree with absolutely everything in the Baptist Faith and Message. We have to determine if you're closely aligned with it. So they're trying not to kick, it feels like they're trying not to remove Saddleback from SBC because they're appointing women pastors and saying, well, it's just you have to be closely aligned. It doesn't mean you actually have to follow. And of course, that was, again, lively debate about all of these things. And so I think everybody was really upset with the committee. Instead of giving us a yes or no, they came back with some sidestep, very like, why would you ask what a pastor is? And why would you say closely aligned? What are you doing here? And that's all raising red flags to what's that committee, like why? And they're the same ones that would decide if we don't follow the sex abuse, if we would be out of the SBC. So I'm already questioning their judgment capabilities on what they're doing.
They're probably sounding like right, you said.
Well, according to him, just in that local area, 90 churches in that Orange County were created by Saddleback. And which was odd. Rick Warren got to get up and talk a little bit
Yeah.
and defend himself. He didn't defend himself, but he got to talk a little bit. And he did nothing but like, we train more pastors than all your seminaries combined. Right here alone, I started 90 churches in this county alone. And he just kept saying how big and wonderful and how almost in a sense is like, you need me. It was odd. It was really odd. Yeah,
Well,
it was,
and-
like I said, it was odd.
And on that issue, and this is one of those things we were talking about the way business worked and functioned. Rick Warren, one, he wasn't a registered messenger, but yet he was given a microphone and allowed to speak. The amount of time you're allowed to speak at a microphone is only like what, 2, 3?
Depends on what's going on. 2 minutes or 3 minutes. That's it.
They let him go for 7. And so it's like, hold on, time out, because here we're deciding whether or not this church is violating doctrine, and we're going to let the pastor, who's not a registered messenger, who has no business at a microphone at the meeting. If one of you would have come with us but not registered, you wouldn't be able to get up to a microphone and talk. You're not a messenger. Only the messengers he wasn't a messenger, but he got to get up and talk. And not for the 2 minutes, they let him go for 7.
One of the
So it's like,
one of
hold
the
on a
many,
second.
many things that I didn't like how they run their business. It's what I said at the beginning. I really don't like how they ran this meeting.
Well,
I really didn't like it.
And that's been one of the kind of accusations from last year, is it's like it's the platform versus the messengers.
Huge divide between the two.
Yeah. And so, but, no,
Maybe edited
If-
versions, little snippets, I think are there. I think that's what I saw.
well, yes,
Yes, we're live.
I don't think they can hear you.
I want to. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't want to make sure. These are my opinions. These is my views. This is my report. Actually, I shouldn't be talking right now. I
No?
should be preaching.
Because
I'm
that's
sorry.
another thing that happened.
That's another thing that happened.
Guy got up to give a report and he didn't give a report.
The executive committee comes up to give their report, and he goes for about an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, no.
It was like an hour and a half. I don't know. It was a long time, and it seemed like a
don't
very
get me
long
wrong, he was good.
time. Good preacher, great
Woo,
preacher.
Yeah.
I learned nothing about the executive committee the hour that he was up there preaching. I learned there was no report given. At the end of the reports, typically, depends on the report, you can ask questions or make motions or respond to the report almost across the board, except for whenever certain things came across, you couldn't ask any questions. Nobody was allowed to question. Nobody was allowed any banter.
All of a sudden, oh, we're short on time. We got to move along. Yeah. And see,
Yeah.
that was one thing.
Time management. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And we actually totaled it up where out of 2 days,
16 hours.
16 hours,
Of sitting there.
there was about 95 minutes of motions
Business.
and,
I call it business.
the motions and the resolutions, the things that are made by the messengers. Now, the rest of the time wasn't all eaten up by non-business. The reports, because
The preaching.
they didn't all do that,
They didn't all do, but they were really close.
But they had a sending ceremony where
That was cool.
missionaries got up and
That was missionaries. Got it for about 30 minutes. There's 52, I think they were sending out. So that was pretty neat. I like that.
But it's like, but every time it kind of seemed like, things were actually getting like, okay, we got some motion going on here. We got some traction, something's happening, and we're short on time. So we're gonna have to cut it off here. And we're like, okay, we're short on time. He preached for an hour.
Mhm.
It's like, any particular reason we needed a 2.5 hour lunch? I don't know why we needed that.
And the sales pitches, it wasn't just preaching. There was 3 or 4 times they got up and they did their sales pitch about some new ministry that the president was doing or starting, or some other guy was doing and starting. And you're like, why did they get an hour up here giving us a sales pitch, showing us a lot of videos, whenever they put me on a 2-minute microphone and they cut our session for 10 minutes. Our session was 10 minutes. If this guy gets an hour, why can't our session be an hour and you just play me a 2-minute video and talk for 5 minutes and thank you very much?
Yeah.
I did not like the way they ran their business. It was really getting under my skin. But the way they were cutting us off, you had the timer on the screen.
At one point, someone did get up, and say, point of order, can we get the mic clock running when the platform is talking?
And they did. They
did.
actually fixed that.
They did.
And anytime they would defend it. So someone speak for 2 minutes and then they would defend it. But before they would just defend it for like 5-10 minutes. And then they're like, can we make that fair? And sure enough, they started a 2-minute timer for the platform also. But we had to make.
Well, and as I said, some of this is tradition, where it's probably just been the way, Baptists and our tradition. Once we got a way we're doing things, it's just the way it gets stuck in there. Part of it also was, it changes year to year because the president is the one actually presiding over the meeting, and some are better at it than others. So, I don't want to. It could just be that this guy wasn't a very good moderator.
Yeah, and that's probably the way it was run, was come out of a committee. So it probably wasn't the president that said all this. It was the committee that set the schedule, and he was just officiating the schedule that was given to him. And like you said, maybe tradition. I just like, oh my goodness, I disagree with that. We got a few minutes left. Do you want to?
Is there anything in particular you want to do?
So we're messengers. Some things were coming out. I'd like to make a motion to make sure that all the seminaries are transparent with their finances. We're giving $200 million to this seminary. I'd kind of like to know what they do with it. They would respond with, I'm sorry, the SBC is not set up that way. You cannot tell them what to do. One entity cannot tell another entity what to do. And a lot of people are getting shut down when they're asking legitimate questions or they're wanting things. And then this question, last year, they said, you told us that we owned those things. Like we control, these are our entities, like the International Mission Board, the North American Mission Board, and these seminaries. Like, don't we get to have some sort of say in what they're doing? And no, even though they tell us we do, when it came to it, and we're trying to ask and make motions and try to get some things, it was shut down at every turn. And they're like, nope, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Wait a minute. So we're giving, and there's no transparency on the details about stuff. Now, they give us reports, and it's kind of decided what they give us reports. But that seemed like to some people, there's 3 or 4 people that tried that.
Yeah.
And they were getting shut down, but I could see the spirit of what they were doing. And it seemed like it was like and they were getting frustrated.
There are some things that are legitimately, annual meeting convention is not the place that gets handled. You would actually need to go to, that entity's actual internal meeting and handle that there. There was some of that. And I think,
and like I said, that was some of the crossing the line.
But there was one in particular where they wanted, I believe it was an audit of, was it the North American? It was one of the mission boards. Someone, motioned to audit, the mission board. They came back and said, well, that's not a proper, that motion's out of order for the convention. That's not something we're able to do because of the structure. And then, someone came back and asked the question, well, wait a minute. Like he said, last year you said we could do this to the executive committee. The motion that was made was literally word for word the sexual abuse task force motion from last year, only they replaced sex abuse with audit and executive committee with the mission board. And they came back and said, well, that's different. Executive committee, mission board, those are different. So it's, out of order, moved on. Someone else came out and goes, hold on. How is this different? Why can't we do it? Don't we own these? We're the convention. There are entities. Can't we tell them to have oversight over them? That's been asked and answered. Next. And you had like 3 other people who got up and basically asked some other form of the same question. They said, that's been asked and answered. Well, obviously it hasn't been answered because we keep asking.
Sidestep it and push it down the rug. So there's some stuff like that I disagreed with.
So, and there may be a legitimate thing where the relationship between the messengers at the convention to the executive committee is different than the messengers at the convention to the mission board. That there might be some structural thing there where it is different. But nothing was made clear. It was just said, you can't. Next, move on. That was rather frustrating. Yeah,
And then they're going to say, we don't control them.
right,
No entity controls another entity.
and I mean, I understand some of it is really frustrating because someone got up, made a motion, and they said, no, that's out of order because whatever, and then moved on. And someone goes, can we amend that motion to make it in order? And it was like, no, we've already moved on from that. Next. And so I get part of it is you just have to know what you're doing. Whenever you have a meeting with, 7,000 people, you can't sit there and nitpick every little thing. It's got to move. It's got to go. And if you make a motion, you do whatever, and you don't have your, I's crossed and your T's dotted, it's just not going to work out.
Yeah. You gotta be on your game. If you're going to make a motion, you got to know it's going to work, and you got to know your rules in order to make that work. And I was asking, they would pull out this big old book and it had the bylaws. Can we get that? And they're like, well, maybe, I don't know. I'm like, okay, I'd like to see if we can
I'm sure there's probably somewhere we can.
somewhere get those bylaws so we know what the rules we're playing by.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to it. There's some questionable things, like they were asking, can we make a motion to control another entity? Of course, it was shot down. But the question was, can you not make your missionaries mandated have their vaccinations? With good conscience, we'd like to not be vaccinated by our conscience and reason, stuff like that. And they were like, no, that's a bad motion. Do we not know what they're doing in the International Mission Board? Do we not know what laws and what kind of rule and governing and stuff, if they're mandating all of the missionaries to be vaccinated? So that makes me question a whole bunch of other things that they're doing. Same thing with like the lawyers. Our lawyers, a week before this, they decided to support all the gay pride and the Pride Month and stuff. And so we're like, are you going to fire your lawyers because that's obviously not in line with our beliefs? And that was another moment where someone got to stand up and talk for, and so the answer there was no, we're not going to fire our lawyers because they're pro LGBT. And
so just to be clear,
there's a lot of
the law firm that is the outside counsel for the SBC is a secular law firm. The specific attorneys that represent, that handle the SBC within that firm are Christians, are Baptist, are members of Southern Baptist churches. And so that was kind of the answer there is, well, I mean, the law firm itself, we can't speak for, but the people who are the attorneys who actually are representing us, they're Christians and,
But it still means that our money goes to an entity that supports something that we don't support, which is the same thing as if you buy something from Amazon, we don't agree with them, or Walmart, we don't agree with everything, right? So it's just, do we choose to not pay our money toward that entity? And the other thing is, if she's an employee, every so often your boss mandates and tells you what to do. So she might not have a choice, because it was a female lawyer, as a Christian working for that law firm, she might have a choice to do her own conscience and stuff. So like I said, I had a lot of questions on that. They had some disagreements of what's going on in the entities versus like, we would like to affect those and we can't through the SBC is the way I see it. We'd have to go to those entities, request that of the entities outside of the SBC, it feels like. And like, so what's the point? The point for us is we are unity. We want to give our money to a corporate program that sends out the most missionaries all over the world. We want to give for the greater good. So a lot of little pieces make a really big change. That's what the point is, right? Our point is we work together to do some better good.
are they doing the better good?
That's the question.
And there are ways of doing it. Churches support. So, to me, the biggest factor that here is this looking for a loophole.
Yes.
Yes.
Considering the fact that other loopholes for crime, loopholes for whatever.
Loopholes for Christ.
Yeah.
Closer to the line.
Yeah, that loophole for close to the line, loophole for what's it mean by pastor. So like I said, same thing. I'm listening to my committee, my SBC committees, ask these questions, going exactly the same questions going through my mind. Why? What? What are you? Yes. What are we gonna give on? And so I would like, we gave a report. I would like to say, what does this bring us to? What kind of questions are we too far not aligned with what, like I said, the platform versus the messengers? Are we not aligned with the platform? Do we make a decision to leave? Do we make a decision to stay and fight and try to change it? Do we make a decision to stop giving as much money as we're giving because there's no transparency, there's no accountability? Do we change our finances? I think we're going to have a lot of questions. What's our direction going forward? What does this open our eyes up to? This opened up my eyes a lot. Huh?
Yeah. We're going to assign
Yeah,
a task force.
We're going to assign a task force for all this. You guys make a motion.
So, and one thing, it's interesting because there were a few key things like the pastor deal, because part of that is, I believe it was Al Mulder, actually, as much as he's kind of been a little odd on some issues lately, he got up and spoke passionately about, we don't need someone to define what a pastor is. The Bible tells us what a pastor is, and it says a woman can't be it, right? I mean, he was just nailing it.
And there was a meme going around saying, like, the SBC doesn't even know what a pastor is.
Yeah.
Because that's coming from the platform. Please define the word pastor. So now we look like idiots. We don't even know what a pastor is.
So, and I have the same concerns, because it's like, if we're sliding on this, because it's not just an issue of can a woman be a pastor? It's not just an issue of, okay, well, the office versus the title. No. It's, what does the Bible say? And are we going to be faithful to what the Bible says?
Yes.
And I mean, is that not the approach we're taking? And one of my main concerns is little things that are hard to recount, the way things were worded, that made me go, wait a minute. Like at one point, someone asked the question about the sex abuse thing. Well, hold on a second. So we're paying all this money and to have all this stuff done, and we're going to have this, list, and we're going to have this or that. My church has, we don't have any sex abusers in my church. Why is it that our giving is supposed to be going to pay for something someone over in some other state has done? And wish I could get it verbatim from the platform. The guy said, well, you've benefited from being in Southern Baptist.
Yes.
His argument was basically white privilege, only it was Baptist privilege. It was very much a social justice privilege, versus victim kind of mindset, what the phrasing he gave. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a red flag. And there were a lot of little things like that even if the overall kind of gist of whatever happened wasn't itself bad, there was some way things were said or done that I'm like, I don't like the way that's indicating.
There's some other little, like, these are people, so I'm not going to say this is SBC, but there's a few things that I would question him. Say, why that doesn't seem like it's. One of the first ones that caught me was the guy's supposed to get up there and pray, and he says, I can't pray. I can't pray because I have anger toward y'all guys. I need to get right before God will listen to me. I'm like, I don't think so. I think I can pray in my condition. God loves me and who I am, and I can pray to him. Like, that's the time to pray. And so it was odd, and it really struck me as, is that your theology? I don't understand what's going on here, that you can't pray unless you do everything right, unless you repent, unless you're perfect, and then you have a relationship with God.
That's like saying, clean yourself up before you go to church, before you become a Christian.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, completely wrong, right? And that's why I was like, okay, that guy, and I think he's the vice president now. I think he's the vice president, or he's the second vice president. I think he got elected. The other thing, God is not helping us because we're not unified. And like I said, there's a distinct difference between the platform and the messengers. And the messengers are asking a lot of good pointed questions
Part of why
And-
we're not unified is because some of what we see going on ain't biblical.
on the stage.
So
And the response to that, or the part of the preaching there, was, we messed it up, so we have to fix it. God is not going to bless us. God's not going to bless anything we do. Almost like we can't pray to God until we fix our unity. Again, this was just one of the reports that wasn't a report. It was more preaching. And so there was some, like I said, you can't quite quantify all the little things that they say about when they were talking about abortion. And that was another one, the ethics committee. That caught me, and I was like, he did not just say that.
sorry, we're out of time. We're just gonna have
Yes.
to cut this short.
Yeah, really, seriously. It's like, I missed my 2 minute. Turn my mic off. That's another thing. They just turn the mic off even though someone's talking.
So
Oh, that got my goat. This
one of the big issues, and this was another thing, there are a lot of hot button issues that messengers were like, we want this front and center. And it's like the resolutions committee, you submit a resolution, and then the committee goes through them basically, because you might get 5 different people submitting the same kind of resolution. They put them all into one to save time. Or, they have to choose only so much time to do so much stuff. Well, there were things like someone submitted a resolution on critical race theory to absolutely, without a doubt, state unequivocally that critical race theory is wrong. And it was declined, and in the bulletin, there's actually, it lists why it was declined to bring it out. And the reason it was declined is because, we said something about that last year. No, what got said last year, one, that was last year's convention, new messengers, that's not how it works. And two, that was weak. That was tepid denouncement. We want strong statement. There were several things that were like that. Someone made a resolution on transgender, and they said, well, that fits in with this other statement about LGBT. It's like, again, major issue facing us in society. We want to make a strong statement. Don't worry about that. Didn't really like that. But I was going somewhere with that. The abortion one, because that was one of them.
The ethics committee.
Because one of the motions that was made, our resolutions, was about equal protection for the unborn. That if we absolutely do believe that the unborn are human, are life, and they are deserving of the same rights and protections that everyone else has, then under the law, they should just be considered persons. And whatever you do to them, you face the same legal consequences as you would to a born person. And there was huge divide over that because and this is one of the reasons why the ERLC, they wanted to abolish them, was because the position of the president of the ERLC was, no, women are victims in this. The motion and a lot of the voice from the messengers was, no, if you're choosing to go kill your baby, you're accountable for that. But the position from the president of the ERLC was, no, women are victims in this just as much as the baby are. We don't want any kind of.
And it wasn't just that. It was the way he said it. It showed his stance that he is a politician, and he's in the world of politicians, and he's our voice in this politicians. That's really what concerns me, is he is our voice, this president and this committee. The way he said this, and the way he rebutted, yes, Roe versus Wade is going to be turned over and stuff like that. I did not want to push this issue because they need a win and blah, blah, blah. And he kept on going. I was like, they need a win? Are you serious? You're in a fight about abortion, and you're going to play politics, and you're going to allow them to win. They don't give us a win. They take us down fast, hard every single time and don't give us an inch. And you're going to be over there and just, they needed a win on that. Abortion? They needed a win on abortion? And you're my voice in the political world, the SBC voice. Wow, I disagree with that one a little bit. Just his stance.
Yes. Right. If
That's one of the takeaway questions.
Yeah, if we were to say, I'm not liking the way this is going, you know what? I love our local association. Tim Randolph is amazing. What if we just give our money to local stuff? I mean, we can make those kind of decisions, as a church. I mean, we just give. What was that?
I would prefer to be a lot more specific
Well,
than
so-
just the cooperative program.
A few years ago, and one of the reasons, well, anyway, a few years ago, they actually opened it up because for years it was in order to qualify for messengers to actually be a part of the SBC, you had to be giving specifically to the cooperative program. Now it's opened up that if you give to any Southern Baptist entity, you're now qualified as being a part of the Southern Baptist Convention. So we can actually choose to say, I don't like them, I don't like them, I don't like them. You're doing okay. I'll give you our money. So
That's something I think we should bring up maybe in a business meeting, that we're going to say 2 or 4 finance. Like I said, that's decisions we need to make taken away from this. Sir, you had a question. Okay, would you like to take for or against?
I'm totally going to segment.
Okay, can we mute his?
yeah.
So yes, there are issues, we knew there were issues before, you guys were in.
Yeah.
Are there groups of Baptist churches who are kind of forming coalitions for the cause that you could get a better feeling of what to have an effective and maybe aligning with it, we can be as a group more effective?
Yes. So, all this craziness that's going on, there are other, networks, groups, fellowships of churches within the SBC that are working towards things. Probably the most notable is the Conservative Baptist Network, who had actually Tom Askell, who was, I was hoping to win president, was kind of nominated, kind of had that group's backing. And so there are other things out there, but yes, there are networks, groups, fellowships of churches that are work together in order to help do stuff. Which, because we were talking, that's one of the things you got to do. If we actually want to see change, you have to have a group that is organized and strategic, come to this meeting, have people at the microphones ready to go. Because once business starts going, it moves fast. And so
You have, like I said, you have to know the rules. You have to know how to play the game and being a part of a group. Like I said, if there's 9 microphones, you need like 15 people standing in line at every single one, waiting to put your motion through, because you can only get 3 or 4 motions because they give you 10 minutes. They'll speak for, like I said, we were there for 16 hours, 2 days straight, and they gave us 30, 40 minutes to do this, to get up and say something. So everybody's on the line. Next one, and you're trying to beat the clock. Like I said, there's ways to play the game. Like I said, I don't like the way they run the business. I keep going to say that. I don't like the way they run it.
Robert and his rules of order.
The timekeeper. Anyway.
My question is, do you have one good reason to give us the Southern Baptist Convention from that?
I'd like to discuss those things like in a business meeting, so we can have some,
Well,
yeah.
So, and here's my point, because that's one thing, even after last year, I was like I went into this year, actually I went into just watching, because I didn't go last year, just watching last year's meeting. I was thinking, if this is how things are going, I don't know if I want to be a part of this group, but they actually went in a direction. I'm like, okay, I can live with that. After watching all this, it is still the fact that it is the largest missionary sending body, the seminaries. I mean, there's a lot of really good work that is being done by the Southern Baptist Convention. Kind of the politicking around like the convention kind of stuff. I don't want that to, color how I view everything in the whole convention. Well, one of the problems is, like, I'm sure of the seminary, some are probably better than others, but in order to know that, we would actually have to be looking at each individual seminary, that's all things like, we said before, there were some motions where they make a motion that has something to do with a seminary. Well, okay, that's not business we handle here. You would actually have to go to a meeting of the trustees of that seminary and deal with that business there. And so as far as knowing what's being taught and all that kind of stuff, we would actually have to go do our homework.
I would say along those lines, I think whenever I'm talking about like a business meeting and stuff and deciding if we're going to make any changes financially, we need to be better stewards, given just to the blank program versus knowing what's going on. That's my takeaway, at least on the financial side, is make some changes, but make some changes that we believe that are proper, that are good stewards, that we're not just giving money to people that we just can't get behind.
I don't think the SBC is sunk.
No.
I don't think it's gone there. I don't think it's gone over the cliff. Might be heading for it. I don't think it's gone over it.
Like I said, when I'm talking about these bad things that I'm disagreeing with, it's kind of like that individual, and you have to read between the lines to see where their heart is. But I'm also like with the committee coming out like, we have a question. What's a pastor mean? That's a big one. That's a huge red flag. These other ones are kind of like, that guy's going to get off the platform in a year. That guy's going to get off the platform in 2 years. I mean, things are going to change. So my question at the beginning is, do we stay and fight? Do we stay and get a part of a group? Do we figure out where our money needs to go? Like, we need to make some decisions to say, yes, let's stay a part of it because it does a lot of good. And unity, we can do more.
And I don't think we're at the point yet where like where change can't be. I think that we're just at a point where we can no longer just be like, oh, send the money in.
Yeah.
Okay. But there are shenanigans enough that now we have to be good stewards. We have to actually look and go, okay, are we giving to this? Okay, well, what's that doing with our money? I don't like that. Then let's send it here, right? And those are decisions now where for years we've been able to just be like Southern Baptists. I mean, at least we're not like those Methodists over there, right? We just send our money. I don't think we have the luxury anymore. We need to be more stewards, do our due diligence, and make sure
who runs the Lynn? You need to be a better steward because it's all on you. Yeah.
Think about this in spiritual real estate. These entities are very large. These entities do quite a bit. And you kind of mentioned, you don't think that they are so far gone, they're about prepared. And in this kind of society we're living in, you're losing to attrition a lot of things. And so I would have to be convinced it's a lost cause before I would say, let's not stay in life.
Exactly. And I'm not saying, hey, we should leave. I'm a proponent of staying and fighting. The thing is we need to see this over a few years. This is us going to Louisiana. This is us going to the next one. This is going to the next one after that, Dallas after that. So I think this is when I said at the beginning, did the church waste their money on sending us over there to this convention? I'm going to say no, because like I said, I still agree that we should stay and fight, that we should be up there part of a group, that it's not a lost cause. And I still feel like they do a lot of good things.
Well, and
I just think we need to be better steward of some
one
of our
thing to
decisions.
keep in mind, what was it, back in the 80s, whenever there was the conservative resurgence, that didn't just come along and just happen. Looking back now, 40 years, it looks like, 80s came along and conservatives stood up and took over the convention. No, that actually happened over years of working in. You get a certain, you get a conservative president in there. They're able to appoint some people because you have all these trustees on different committees that don't all rotate out at the same time. So, it actually takes years in order to start getting the machinery and mechanisms going to get changes. It's like turning an aircraft carrier, right? It takes time for those things to change their trajectory.
But I do feel like the current is affecting that air. It's still, the current is tending to control it instead of us going against the current. It's definitely, and like I said, we stay and we fight, we try to steer it, we try to make our voice known. But like I said, we could have had 9 votes there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want to stay and fight, pay them to fight us.
Yes.
Well-
Yes, pay them to fight us.
Are we following God? Are we following the convention?
So one of the things we were talking about is like, do we want to send 9 people? Then maybe we keep up our finances as they are. We pick something better that we more get aligned with, and we still send that much money, or do we pay local? And so now we only have enough to send 3 messengers. our voice is diminished a little bit, but we're being better stewards. So like I said, these are some decisions I think maybe we need to discuss and come to about what should we do and be better stewards about our actions and our finances.
Well, too, there'll be more locally,
The next few, the conservative areas, yes, and hopefully we'll see some more.
Well, and that is another thing to remember. The conventions tend to be more likely to be attended by people who are closer to where they're held. And this one was held in California. So it's going to have a more liberal bent to the messengers that show up. Next one's in New Orleans. So that's going to be a lot of, hopefully more conservative Southern, churches. I forget where 2004 is, but 2005 will be Dallas. Or 25, yeah. I can't count. I was public school. All right. I think we've said about.
We're way over time. We should have cut his mic off.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's the way I felt at the end of the meeting. I'm like, I'm not finished talking.
What do you mean we're done? No, we're not. All right, so
I wasn't preaching.
last chance.
Oh, I mean,
Only one of them.
They kept kind of pushing it off and shutting it down and not giving answers.
What happened? So it's like the seminaries. Whenever they were asked about abortion, they gave boilerplate pro-life talking points.
Yeah.
The only one, oddly enough, with his leftist, he kind of seemed to have been sliding. Al Mohler, was he Southwest, or which one is he at? Southern. He got up there and he was just no, it is wrong. It is the murder of a baby. And this is, and just gave a nice, good, powerful, straightforward answer about it. And so I think the issue between kind of like a lot of what's going on, like just among your run of the mill messengers or your smaller churches versus the more machine plugged in, thing is the incrementalist versus the abolitionist kind of movement. Where, I am wholehearted. It's like, what? If I want abortion, gone. You're killing a baby. It's not allowed. Let's stop dancing around it and using euphemisms and kind of, I get the idea of, like the football metaphor that, on your running game, as long as you can make 2 or 3 yards every play, it doesn't matter. You don't have to do the Hail Mary passes. You'll make it there eventually kind of idea. Okay. And every time one of those laws get passed, great. There's a few more babies that will be saved, but we're killing babies. Can we just admit we're not allowed to murder babies? And but most of the people from the platform and in leadership in a lot of these entities, they're more of the, I don't want to say soft pedaling, but more the incremental kind of downplayed a little bit. They're not so much the loud and proud.
And like he said, he said it from the stadium, from the podium. He said, well, they needed to win. They don't need a win, and that's the soft pedaling, the
political give and take,
the give and take, the compromise.
So,
and I'm more with him. Like, just get rid of it. There's no they needed a win. Get it out of here.
So,
all
right, for real, we're done. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you, Lord. We thank you for the opportunity that here we are, this little church on a hill in Moody, Texas, but yet we're able to be one snowflake in that avalanche. Lord, I pray that you help us to make wise decisions with our giving and with our involvement. Lord, that all things that we do are seeking to further your kingdom, to spread your gospel. Lord, that we can grow in our sanctification as we follow after you. That whether it is in our personal lives we honor you, or whether it is our stewardship of what you have entrusted us with, God, let it all be to your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Now that he's gone.
Well, like I said, if you're gonna go, you need to go with your gang moms.